This week, some truly horrifying stories about camping and hiking, plus we finish out our Denali series talking about the front country area, all the stuff you can do in town, in and around Denali National Park. This is RV Miles.
Since 1912, LL Bean has been helping people get outside together with gear tips and advice for exploring all the possibilities of the outdoors all year long. LL Bean's founder once said, "If your feet are happy, you're happy." So here's a tip for your winter footwear. Your feet can still sweat even when it's cold, so swap your cotton socks for a merino wool blend. Cotton holds moisture and takes a long time to dry, but wool traps heat and wicks away moisture, keeping your toes cozy. For more tips, easy how-tos, and inspiring stories, visit llbean.com/explore.
Welcome to episode number 306 of RV Miles. I'm Jason.
And I'm Abby, and we are two RVers who, along with our three boys, Jack, Ethan, and Henry, have been crisscrossing North America on one epic road trip since 2016. Here at RV Miles, we talk all things RV and outdoors, from industry news to travel destinations, our national parks, and so much more.
This is going to be a fun episode. We're going to talk about a lot of the stuff that we really enjoyed visiting. We love going to national parks and visiting the gateway towns. We like all the stuff in the gateway communities. It's all ridiculously expensive. And there are lots of things that you can do at Denali that we didn't do. There's all the activities that you can pay lots of money for, like the helicopter rides, and you can go whitewater rafting right there. If you're like that type of person, there's a whole lot you can do there. But we're going to share some of our favorite things from that experience. But first, we've got some stories here from the hard-hitting journalists over at cracked.com.
I don't even know how you landed on this website. I don't know anything about this, so I was not allowed to read this ahead of time. I don't know how he got there, but here we are, folks. We're going to kick it off with some truly horrifying experiences that people have had while hiking or camping. So that should really encourage you to want to get started on your 2024 camping planning.
What these folks did is they pulled some stories off of Reddit. So this is actually human stories from Reddit. So here's one. Okay. Sheer terror when I was a kid at Boy Scout summer camp. One kid left a couple of Airheads. If you don't know what Airheads are, our kids love Airheads. They are a sour candy out on the picnic table. Everyone woke up in the middle of night to, no joke, 30 plus raccoons fighting over Airheads and going into tents looking for more food. If you've never heard that many hissing and growling raccoons at the same time, good for you.
Wow.
We've told this story before about tent camping in Michigan, where we had a raccoon that we thought was a bear. It was so big and loud.
We've had several raccoon encounters. We've had that one. I think it was a raccoon that tried to make out with your leg in the dark when we were at Starved Rock. Yeah. And then most recently, when we were at Yosemite, we were those people who forgot that we had left our trash. We were cleaning up inside and had put our trash bag outside, that someone needed to walk it to the trash can, got sidetracked, forgot that it was there. I woke up, or at some point in the evening, actually, we were still all up. I believe it was Jamie and Clay that informed us that we were currently feeding the wildlife.
Yeah. To be clear, we weren't in the national park. We were in
No. We were at the Thousand Trails that was outside the park, but
not
still
that it's any better. Yeah.
Not any better whatsoever. So of course we went out there and quickly took care of it. There were no Airheads in it, so only one raccoon was interested in it as opposed to 30. What a terrifying thing to be a kid to wake up to in the middle of the night.
Here's a fun one. Every parent's nightmare. When I was 5-ish, I sleepwalked. How do you say that? Sleepwalked. I sleepwalked out my tent and off a small cliff in North Carolina into a lake. Woke up down there, then screamed until my parents found me. And this is why some parents fear that their kids are going to leave the RV at the middle of the night. You know, some like double bunkhouse RVs that have a door in the back.
Yes.
You've got to leave it unlocked in case there's a fire or something. But
oh my gosh. So we have a child that has been prone to sleepwalking. And there's only been a few times where I have been concerned that they might actually leave. Most of the time, I'm just really concerned they're going to just pee somewhere.
Look, our kids,
TMI,
we've been lucky.
like...
I mean, our kids, he sleepwalks a little bit. It's nothing compared to what my brothers and I used to do. We used to sleepwalk a lot. And
Would you leave?
I don't
like
know.
Your house?
No, but some of us have been known to pee in things.
Oh my goodness gracious. No, I had some cases where I think mine were more night terrors. Like I used to be really prone to having nightmares as a child. And often, especially if I was sick or something, I have a distinct memory of my mom like waiting up at night because she knew I wasn't feeling well and she knew I was probably going to have a bad dream and be up kind of disoriented and looking for her. So she just stayed up waiting for me. I don't have any stories that involve anyone in my life just randomly peeing in things.
There was one time
I don't understand.
I won't say which brother it was, but there was one time I was like out on the couch in the living room up really late as like a teenager, right? And one of my brothers came out, you know, maybe it was like 12:30 or something at night, and went into the kitchen, and they had that look on their face, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And they ignored me, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "Getting a snack." God. And then they opened the fridge and peed right in the fridge.
Oh, I know who this is. I know 100% who this is. I know exactly which brother-in-law of mine did this. That's classic. Yeah. That feels right on the nose for him. Wow.
I think there's this story about when I was like real little that I like peed in my grandmother's toothbrush drawer or something.
What is happening? What is this normal?
Maybe it's a boy thing. I don't know. Luckily, our kids have not. I've almost caught our kids almost doing something like that before and stopped it, but.
On the regular, I say, I don't know how you live with it. I don't know how you live with that thing. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Here's one this one is like, this is the beginning of a horror movie. Solo camping in the middle of nowhere. When I woke up in the morning, someone had made a cup of tea and partially drank it in the middle of the night on my picnic table. No sign of anyone anywhere.
Oh my God. What? Tea drinkers, you all are very, very serious about your tea. Like, you're very serious about it. I have so many questions.
You must have been like really hikers and like, you know, it's a spot that a lot of people stop at, I'm guessing. I don't know.
Right, but you left the cup? You used the the tent solo camper's cup? Is the solo camper a tea drinker and someone just helped themselves to his Earl Grey? Like, this is why I can't ever be on Reddit.
Yeah.
Because that is a rabbit hole I will never climb out of.
Here's one that you'll love. Went camping in deep Appalachia in a tent. Woke up to a weird feeling that I was laying on something.
No.
Then I felt it move.
Stop.
A snake had made its way under my tent, and I think it was trying to get warm as it stopped moving right under where my back was. After me moving a bit and finally went on its merry way, I'll never forget how it felt moving underneath me.
Oh my gosh. I can't handle this.
Abby loves snakes. Abby can't handle the fake snake at Rainforest Cafe that's like hanging from their sign.
No, I don't go there. I don't go there.
And
no.
You can't handle the cartoonish.
You don't get my business, Rainforest, because you've put a giant snake like right at the entrance. This is why Indiana Jones movies are very difficult for me to watch. Like the Indiana Jones ride is very hard for me to get on because I know there's going to be a whole section of snakes. Even the Jungle Cruise is very difficult for me to get through because there are snakes. There's a section
1950s
cobras,
animatronic
It's all, I mean, my chill vibe right now is to watch Secrets of the Zoo Tampa. It's on Disney Plus. Okay, it's like 3 seasons. It's a Nat Geo thing. This is like my chill vibe. This is how I come down from the day. It's just watching all of these endangered and injured animals find a new life in this zoo and how much people love and care for them. And it's just got the right amount of like tug at my heartstrings, but also drama at the same time, but nothing like just really awful, you know. Last night, they finally broke me. I knew an episode with snakes was coming. I hadn't seen one. And I spent half of that episode just like with the blanket up over my eyes because I was like, I can't watch this. Tell me when it's over. They were releasing snakes back into the wild. And I was like, the whole point is to get them out of the wild so that I can go to the wild. Why are you putting them back?
That's not what zoos are for. That is really not. I think you're not getting the lesson of your zoo show.
The snake population should just all go to the zoo and be in the reptile house. And then that way I know I don't go in there.
Well, I'm going to skip some of the, there was a cockroach story I just skipped. There was a spider story I just skipped. So we'll go to this one. Night 1 of a trip at Sleeping Giant in Canada, I believe. First night out, I'm always a little jumpy because it takes a while to get used to the sound of the woods. And this was no exception. It was a solo trip, so just me and a little tent on the edge of the forest, looking out onto a small slope down onto a pebble beach. I was having some real trouble getting to sleep. The woods were just so loud, and my mind kept jumping to serial killer instead of normal wildlife. I was trying to convince myself otherwise when I hear some heavier footsteps breaking twigs. My heart is in my throat because I just know I'm going to die all alone in the Canadian backwoods. Then I hear a crash and some falling rocks directly outside my tent, and I work up the courage to turn on my flashlight and unzip the door to have a look, at which point I catch a glimpse of the very clumsy woodland elk that had just fallen down the slope onto the beach right in front of me. Didn't die.
I have to say, these stories make an exceptionally good case for why I don't tent camp and why over all these years you have been wanting to get a tent and you've been wanting to do some tent camping, and I've been very, very supportive of that. Yeah. But I have always said to you, you go by yourself. I stay in the RV. I stay in the RV that has walls and a door where I can still enjoy nature, but can be in a space in which I don't have to, fingers crossed, worry about sleeping on top of a snake. It's not to say they can't get in there, but
you sleep on a pad.
Nope. Hard pass on all of that.
Me, my old roommate, and a friend went hiking into the woods in Tennessee. We were going along, minding our own business. Then we came up upon a stream. On the other side of the stream, getting ready to cross, was a group of about 5 or 6 dudes, only wearing socks and shoes.
Nope.
Naked bros hiking in the woods. I'm all about being in your birthday suit or whatever, but it was weird seeing it for the first time. And apparently it's a thing. People do naked hiking. There's like a naked hiking day, isn't there?
Jay, there's a whole show called Naked and Afraid, like being naked out in nature.
Why are they naked?
Why are they afraid?
I mean,
there's a lot of...
I would be afraid to... Just the being naked, like around like poison ivy and mosquitoes is enough to be afraid of for me.
Naked hiking is for sure not my thing. Okay,
scratched by trees and stuff. Come on.
Listen, and if I've got to, sometimes you got to go off trail and you got to go to the bathroom, and sometimes it's hard to kind of find and cut a good path, so you're trying to leave as little trace as possible. That seems very, very difficult to do naked. So I also, frankly, hey, you do you. And if going out into nature and being naked works for you, do it. The thing that cracks me up, though, is the wearing of the shoes and the socks, because, there's that whole, what is that whole thing called where it's like, you're like forest bathing or something. You're supposed to go out and you're supposed to
grounding.
Grounding. You go out and you walk barefoot and you're grounding into the earth. This seems like think you're doing that, but you're taking like the one component away which is actually the feet touching the earth.
You do you. I just feel like, okay, you're wearing shoes to protect your feet from the ground.
That's great.
There are other things to protect. That's really what it comes down to.
Sunburns. Lots of itchy plants out there. I just, it's just not for me. But if I saw it out in the wild, I'd be like, okay, whatever. Have a great day. Can I offer you guys a Nature Valley bar? Whatever.
There are a lot more of these. I'll link to this article in the description.
There's 22 of them, according to the article.
You can troll through it yourself. But there's some really funny ones in there that I avoided because they would scare Abby.
Yeah, don't read these with anyone you're trying to convince that hiking and camping. Maybe read the naked hiker one but don't read these if you're trying to convince someone to go hiking and camping with you, because this is not the story. This is not the article that's going to convince them for sure.
All right. In just a moment, we'll be back and we're going to talk about the final portion of our visit to Denali National Park, and that's sort of the front country stuff. So I'm excited to get into that stuff. We'll take a break and we'll be right back.
Be right back.
Chances are you've seen them on the road. That's because Blue Ox designs and manufactures the best towing products in the industry. Just look around. You'll find them on highways and campgrounds and anywhere you find people traveling in the great outdoors. Award-winning tow bars, base plates, and brakes, a full line of weight distributing hitches, adjustable ball mounts, and a new line of fifth wheel hitches. With Blue Ox, towing doesn't have to be a drag. To learn more about how Blue Ox can make your travel adventures even more stress-free, visit blueox.com. This episode is sponsored by the ParkWolf app. Ever found yourself in the heart of a national park surrounded by beauty, but unsure where to go or what to see? That's where ParkWolf comes in. ParkWolf is the ultimate app for exploring national parks. As you drive, the GPS shows you what's coming up on the road, and an audio guide will fill you in on what's there so you can decide if it's worth a stop for you or not. Gas running low, looking for a bite to eat or a bathroom break? ParkWolf's got you covered. It keeps track of the nearest gas station, restrooms, food, and pullover areas. And the best part, it works without an internet connection. And if you're a wildlife enthusiast, you'll love ParkWolf's wildlife maps and sighting notifications. So before you set off on your next national park adventure, download the ParkWolf app for your iPhone from the App Store. It's your ultimate guide to national parks.
All right, let's finish up our series on Denali National Park, but not entirely, because in the next episode we need to talk about Talkeetna, which is the entirely different side of it's where we actually got to see the mountain a lot.
Yes, but Talkeetna is
not
a
really,
town.
yeah.
It's a destination town.
Yeah.
It is definitely connected to the park, but there are a lot of things about Talkeetna that draw people there besides Denali. So, and it's not going to be 3 parts. Yeah. It's literally going to be a episode. And we never intended. It's so interesting when we broke down Denali and we started talking about everything. This was never the intention to make this 3 episodes.
There's just so much.
There's so much. And, this is one of those things, I think, for anyone. Not everyone is going to Alaska. Not everyone is going to Denali. But I do think for those that do decide to go, there is an incredible amount of research and questions. Like, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I make this work? Probably more so than traveling the lower 48.
Yeah, there's a great Facebook group, by the way. I don't think I've mentioned it in any of these episodes, called RVing to Alaska, where you can really get a lot of information about exactly what it says, but also about like this upcoming season and stuff, or what people experienced last year. There was one post yesterday that I'd commented on that somebody was asking about, should they make reservations or can they just do it serendipitously? And I responded, Denali was the one place we really made reservations far in advance, and we're happy that we did, because we stayed a long time.
So use this podcast, use the upcoming Baja to Alaska documentary that we're going to be putting out, use that Facebook group, use all of the resources out there available to you to plan this trip, because there is a lot of questions that we had. Yeah. And we were able to get those answered. And I'm sure that outside of this, there will be a lot of questions that you have that we will not be able to answer, because we did not do everything that there is to do in Denali, which is why something like a Facebook group really comes in handy, or even the America's National Parks Facebook group. That would be a great place to ask questions about Denali that we are unable to answer here in this show. So if you're not a member of that, that's a Facebook group that we run that is part of our America's National Parks podcast. We have a accompanying Facebook group with almost 100,000 members in it. So if you can't find the answer in some of those resources, consider popping over there too.
So we want to start with talking about one of the places that sort of helped us with one of those reservations. So if you remember back on the first Denali episode, we talked about staying at Riley Creek Campground, which is sort of in the front country area of the park. It's a National Park Service campground. And you have a reservation to get in, but the individual sites are first come, first served. So you do want to sort of get there early enough in the day to pick out a good site as people sort of roll out of them. So in order to do that, we wanted to stay really close to the park the night before. And we stayed at 49th State Brewing. It's always nice to stay at a brewery. Now, this is not like a Harvest Host location. This is a brewery that actually has a campground behind it. It looks like years ago, maybe it was like a KOA or something.
Yeah.
It's really kind of run down, and it's just an affordable place to overnight with some picnic tables and fire rings and stuff like that, and electricity, but really no services other than that. It's $25 a night. You can't reserve a site. It's a little difficult to find. There's instructions on their website, but it's like hidden down a hill behind a gas station, and you don't really know exactly where to turn in. But once you figure that out, you can get down there, and it can handle up to sort of medium-sized RVs. Jamie and Clay in their Airstream, which is 30-foot long, fit okay.
So I just really want to reiterate too that the road getting down into this campsite is bumpy. It's downhill. Once again, this is really where the Ibex shines, this independent suspension and the way that it can navigate over this really rough terrain. It was able to get down there with really no problems whatsoever. But it is an unkept road.
Yeah.
And the campground itself is also unkept.
I wouldn't drive like a 45-foot Class A down here.
No. And they do have on-site pay showers and pay laundry if you need them. Near the campground is also the seasonal housing. So it is very much a part of the community of this brewery. They do bring in seasonal workers. You're going to see that all across Denali and all across Alaska, these big tourist towns coming in with all of these seasonal workers. But this is a great intro into moving into Denali. Like Jason said, it's a great staging area so that you can get in right at around checkout time at Riley Creek. Really time your entrance getting into Riley Creek at checkout time, because that is going to be about the time that really the sites start to clear out. We all know this. We do it ourselves, right? We kind of hang out. If we don't have far to go, we're hanging out close to like that checkout time, and then we move out. So that's really when spots are going to open up. So you're going to get into this space. You pay $25 a night. You can do that up at the restaurant, so you can couple that with dinner up at the restaurant, which is lovely.
But 49th State Brewing is worth visiting whether you stay overnight there or not. It's only about 20 minutes from the park itself. So you could stay here if you did want electric hookups and you wanted to use this as a place to stay to go into the park. You could absolutely do that. And you can stay for extended periods in this site. It's just not the most glamorous spot. But the brewery itself, and I think they have other locations, but this is like their primary location. The brewery itself is really nice. They have a great selection of beers, of course, because it's a brewery, but they have a large outdoor sort of hangout space with like outdoor games, an outdoor bar, and I'm sure they have a lot of live music there. And then a really nice indoor restaurant with an indoor bar and tables to set at and all. We went twice and sort of spent time doing both. And the food here is a little more upscale than you would expect at a lot of breweries, like steaks and stuff like that, instead of mostly like burgers, even though they have a little bit of that as well. In
addition to the great food that they have, in addition to the brewery they have on site, they also have a very eclectic cocktail menu as well. It was such a surprise to find this place. It's very, very popular. And actually next to it is also, so you've got the brewery, and then in the parking lot, there is a Thai food truck.
Yeah, like a food. Yeah.
And we didn't have any food from there, but that place was also packed. And I think it's just, this is such a really great...
It was like a Thai food and taco truck.
Was it?
I think it was.
Did they have tacos too?
Yes.
Didn't investigate that one as deep. Although I did see they had pad Thai, which is like my favorite, but it just didn't work out for us to do that. You know, this is a lot of fun. It's very popular. It's got that vibe that you really like of hanging out with everyone who's kind of doing the same thing that you're doing. You're going to make friends really, really quick. And you're all going to start talking about Denali. We went up there and worked a little bit as well and got on their Wi-Fi and were able to sit at a picnic table and have a beer and get some work done. And that was really, really great too.
They have, in their sort of big outdoor space, they have the bus from the movie Into the Wild. If you don't know the story of Into the Wild, and I don't really know the story that well, but there's this bus that people used to hike to where this guy stayed at that was featured in the book and in the movie Into the Wild. That bus has been removed and put in a museum somewhere. But this bus that they have here is the bus that they actually used in the movie to replicate it. So you can take photos with that and everything, and it's kind of cool.
So that's the brewery. That's where you want to start off with if you're staying at Riley Creek. So you can do some staging and then head into the park the next day. Once you get into the park, there were a few things that we did that we really enjoyed. And one of those was biking into town. So we would get up in the mornings when we were at Riley Creek and we would take our bikes into town. We did this a few times to a really, really fun coffee shop. It's called the Black Bear Coffee House, and they had a really fantastic menu of not only just baked goods, but they also do breakfast. The coffee was great.
It was very, very busy.
It's very busy. This is one of maybe 2 coffee stops, like just along there. So if you go into town, there's a whole bunch of resorts, hotels. This is where people that get bussed in are going to come and stay. And then across the street from that is just like this strip of all kinds of shops. So
yeah, I think even like 1 or 2 of the resorts are owned by cruise ship companies because they just send people in on a bus on an excursion off of a cruise into the inner workings of Alaska, I bet. And Denali is one of the places.
And in fact, this row of shops is where we were introduced to who has quickly become one of our most favorite artists, V-Ray. And they do these incredible sort of trick of the eye paintings.
Very like colorful wildlife sort of. I think they're primarily watercolor, but then they're printed on metal, you know.
Yes.
So they've got a pop to them that's just wonderful.
And we were in this store and we happened to see this one that we couldn't, for the first several seconds, we could not figure out what it was. It looked like a bear, but it looked like the bear was sideways. And we were staring at it and we're staring at it and we're riveted by it. And then all of a sudden you figure it out.
It's peeking behind a tree.
It's peeking behind a tree. Yeah. And when you catch it, you just go, oh my gosh, that is so amazing. And we were talking to the owner of the shop and she said, oh, I get people that tell me all the time that I've hung this wrong, that it should be hung as landscape and not portrait. And we're standing there and it's beautiful. I mean, please go look up this artist. Their stuff is gorgeous. And we're looking at it and I'm like, oh, I really would love to own this. It's so beautiful, all of the work. And then the price was like, oh, that's a little bit more than we have a budget for right now to spend on a beautiful piece of art. Not that it's not worth it, just wasn't in our budget. And
but
so
then we found it in Talkeetna.
Don't tell the rest of the story. You have to save it for
sorry.
Talkeetna.
Okay, we'll save it for next week.
So we'll save the rest of how the bear actually came home with us and is currently hanging in our living room looking at us right now. We will save that for the Talkeetna, but we were introduced.
But there's a lot of souvenir shopping type stuff here.
Yes.
If that's what you're into. And there's also sort of, you can find places that will take you on excursions. If you want to take, you haven't seen the mountain, you want to take an airplane tour to go see the mountain and the deep backcountry of Denali, or if you want to take a whitewater rafting trip, they leave right here in downtown. You actually, when we biked into town, and we biked into town using our e-bikes. It was so great.
Yeah, just know it's a lot of uphill, downhill.
Yeah.
Those e-bikes were perfect.
And you go right over the river where folks are whitewater rafting. We haven't named the town yet. And that's because the 49 State Brewing is actually in the town of Healy.
Yes.
But the town just outside of Denali is just called Denali. It's like the addresses for all of these businesses, and locals might correct me.
Yes, please.
But all the businesses, their addresses are Denali National Park and Preserve. So
that's what we're sticking with. It could be totally different. And if you know that to be fact, please let us know. Leave us a comment if you're watching this on YouTube, or just drop a comment like in the RV Miles Facebook group, because every business that we went to all listed it as just Denali National Park and Preserve. So you're going to go into town, you're going to get some coffee, you're going to find your new favorite artist, but maybe you aren't a morning person, but you want to go in, you want to bike in from the park, and you want to get a little something to eat. So we did go, of course. It's time for a pizza recommendation, because it wouldn't be RV Miles if we didn't go eat some pizza somewhere. So we had dinner at Prospector's Pizzeria and Ale House.
This was really cool inside.
Yes, it was.
A lot of historic Alaskan things on the walls, a lot of great photographs, and mining and climbing gear and all that sort of stuff. And again, a little bit more elevated than just a typical pizza place.
All of the restaurants that we encountered here were a little bit more elevated, and I think that just speaks to the popularity of Denali.
Well, it was kind of cool because we hadn't really experienced that yet much in Alaska. A lot of stuff was very rustic and stuff, and here a lot of it was a little bit more special.
Yeah, it was wonderful. The staff there was really great. From the minute we walked in to the minute we left, they were all so kind and so nice, and really great with the kids. We should really reiterate that all of this is expensive.
Yes.
Eating out is very, very expensive all through Alaska, but particularly gateway communities tend to be a little bit more expensive when they're up against incredibly popular national parks.
You can imagine if they're serving like nice, never frozen steaks in Denali, like what it costs to get that there.
Yeah.
Right?
So you pay for that, but if you can budget that out to have a few great experiences, I would say that these three that we've talked about here today in and around Denali were really, really fun. And the final one that we want to talk about is for sure not going to be for everybody, but it was such a great way to do. How would you describe this? Like, it is.
Well, if you like dinner theater, that's what this is.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to be that basic, if you like dinner theater, and if you want to do something that is so kitschy and touristy and just really not, it just really isn't like national park in the backcountry doing your hiking and all of that and your camping, and you want to do like the complete opposite of that, then you want to go to the Alaska Cabin Night Dinner Theater, which is at the Denali Park Village.
So Denali Park Village is a commercial resort that has lots of lodging for folks. Again, like a lot of people come in on the train. The train comes right into Denali, and you can get off and stay at one of these places, but a lot of the cruise ship buses as well. But this is a place that is nice to visit even if you don't go to the show. They've got lots of shops, and they've got a restaurant on site, and we specifically went to this dinner experience because it was Ethan's birthday.
And nothing says turning 13 like your parents taking you to a dinner theater in Alaska.
If you've ever been to Hoop-de-Doo Review at Disney World, this is very much a similar vibe.
Yeah.
With a little less humor and a little bit more serious. There's a lot of humor.
There's a lot of humor. And the talent was actually quite impressive.
Yeah.
I did not have a super high bar for what I expected this to be, and it completely surpassed that. So this is a story that's going to be all about our heroine, who is Fanny Quigley, and an unforgettable cast of characters. And it's a gold rush tale of adventure in the early 1900s in Alaska.
Kind of about the founding of Denali.
Yes.
Some of the characters are the folks that first explored and discovered and climbed the mountain. And you're welcomed from the outside that, when they open the doors, the cast comes out and they sort of do like a pre-show song and stuff. Mm-hmm. And they welcome everybody into this big cabin. And you have sort of reserved seating, but there are all these big communal tables. So you do sit with other people at very long tables, and they really do a lot to work to get you to like talk to the other people and know the other people. So if you're not into that type of thing, know that that's going to be part of it. And then it is this big communal dinner where everything is served family style by the cast of the show.
Yeah.
So they serve all the food, and I think we had...
So the dinner that is Alaskan salmon, barbecue ribs, potatoes, corn, drop biscuits, and berry cobbler.
Oh, the
berry cobbler was so good.
It was giant too.
It was so good. And they also have a full bar. And that's an additional cost, but it is expensive. So this is $90 for an adult and $45 for children 3 to 15. So it is costly, but we really had a good time. Like, it was fun to go and do something that was a little bit more, I guess, commercial or kitschy, or maybe like something that everyone is doing. These things sell out. They are packed during the season. This is a big draw for people that are staying in the village or staying in town. A lot of the cruise ships and tours of visiting this area, they all will come and they will book this as an evening, kind of like how we talked about the Alaska salmon bake. So this is what I wish the Alaska salmon bake
it should be. Yes.
In Fairbanks.
Yes.
This is what this should have been. That's what that Alaska salmon bake should be. The Cabin Night Dinner Theater. Like, this is so much fun. I thought it was absolutely worth the $90. We laughed. We got to interact with the cast. The food was really good. They do just a great job of moving through the story. There's never a whole lot of lull. The singing was fantastic. They play their instruments. It was just a really good time. They get the cast, they get the audience involved. They had some people come up out of their seats.
Yeah, it was really funny, but there were some really moving moments in it.
Yeah, we're waxing quite poetic about this. It's not anything that's going to be Tony nominated.
It's very cornball. Okay, it is on the other end. It is very corny.
It is. But if you want to get out of the park and have just a really fun evening, we would recommend that you check this out and go check out Cabin Night.
We did the show, and then outside of the show, then they have giant fire pits for people to sit and hang about at, and they've got lots of little small shops to go to in this little Denali Village area.
And then the village itself, the main hotel space, also has a restaurant in it. It has a bar. They have a big gift shop, which is where, if you're watching this is where I got the shirt I'm wearing today. So this is like, it's got a little bus on it. It's supposed to be a playoff of Into the Wild, but this is just like a van life bus. It's a Wild Tribute t-shirt. We love Wild Tribute. We're really big fans of what they do. So there's a way that you can extend that, because Cabin Night is short. I think it's only about an hour-ish, maybe hour 20, because they do a 5:30 show and a 7:30. So they've got to have time between the two shows. So it's a short show, but you can absolutely extend your time there by going around and checking out the village itself and walking around. There's parking. We drove over, so there is free parking available over there, and you can just kind of make an evening of it. I thought it was a very nice way to spend Ethan's 13th birthday.
Yeah. Okay, that was our visit to Denali. Finally, we've gotten through all of the Denali stuff. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask about it in the Facebook group. We'd be happy to help you plan your Alaska trip whenever you head up that way. And of course, that RVing to Alaska group is very helpful as well.
Yeah, and eventually Baja to Alaska will be out for you to watch as well. And you can see all of this for yourself.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we will check the level of our tanks.
Be right back. From sea to shining sea, each week the America's National Parks podcast brings to life stories from our nation's greatest treasures in short, easily digestible episodes. From the peaks of the Rocky Mountains to the deserts of Death Valley, America's National Parks celebrates the people, places, and wildlife that make up the over 420 National Park Service sites. Find the America's National Parks podcast, one of Apple Podcasts' top 20 places and travel shows, wherever you listen to RV Miles. Welcome back to the show, and it is time to check the level of our tanks. Sponsored by Matt's RV Reviews, Liquefied RV Toilet Treatment, the no BS toilet treatment. You can find Liquefied in the RV Miles Amazon store. Just head over to amazon.com/shop/RV Miles. Now, Jay, before I ask the level of your tank, we need to remind people, what are we talking about this week on Detour?
We're going to talk about changing up our travel plans for the summer. If you've been listening for a while, you know that we sometimes have great big plans and then we entirely change them up. Well, that just happened. So
yesterday.
We'll talk a bit about that.
Yeah. So if you are interested in joining us for Detour, which is the podcast after the podcast, just become a mile marker member. It's $7 a month or $70 for the year. That's 2 free months there for you that want to do the math. And you can do that by heading over to rvmiles.com/mile markers to learn more about how to access Detour, along with all of the other thank you perks we have there for supporting our small business and making things like the Mile Zero Studio possible.
There will also be a link to it, of course, in the description, or you can just go to the RV Miles homepage and it's up in the upper right corner there.
Somewhere there in the homepage. All right, Jay, what is in your black tank this week?
My black tank is, so there was something that improved in there's a lot of things in RV construction that did not improve over the course of this pandemic boom in RV sales. One of the things that did improve was tires. A lot of manufacturers started to put better tires on trailers. Mm-hmm. And I loved that because some of the tires that they do put on them are pretty terrible. However, that trend is reverting. And part of that is because the reason they put better tires on them during that period was there wasn't access to more affordable tires. So they were starting to put better tires on some. There were some instances of like, you get a better thing because we don't have access to it. And tires were one of them. Well, now after going to the last couple RV shows we've been to, I'm seeing a lot of brands that had jumped up to maybe Goodyear Endurance tires on their trailers are reverting back to Westlake's or Castle Rocks, which are both brands made by the same company, Lion's Head. Lion's Head is a trailer tire company that was basically set up to supply the RV industry in Elkhart, Indiana with cheap tires. They are based in Elkhart. And we could go on and on about the issues with these tires, the Castle Rocks that explode in the spare tire position on a brand new RV and, never had any weight on them. That stuff drives me insane. And it's unfortunate that these super cheap tires get put on, but we're seeing a bit more of that again.
Let's not do that.
Yeah.
Let's not do that. This is such a common complaint by RVers. It is the quickest way to continue to feed the narrative that is poor quality coming out of Elkhart. Why do we keep feeding this narrative by putting tires on? I could go on and on as well. All right. What is in your fresh tank this week?
Well, this is something that's going to start out sounding like a black tank. But you and I have been looking for a while now at what might be our next RV.
A 4-leaf clover.
We've talked about this here. It doesn't exist. But this Sabre is a little too big for our travels now, what we want for our travels now that we're not a full-time family anymore. And it doesn't have quite the right sleeping positions for our kids anymore. And the Ibex was wonderful for Baja to Alaska. It's small, and we would kind of like something that's a Goldilocks, something that's in between. And we've found there's several travel trailers out there. There's some motorhomes out there that have 3 really good sleeping positions for our growing boys, right? A place that is long enough for them. Jack is taller than me. Ethan is as tall as Abby. Sleeping positions for adults, right? We haven't been able to really find that in a fifth wheel, and we'd like to be in a fifth wheel again. We'd like to be in a shorter fifth wheel. So there's some stuff out there that's like 46 foot long that still doesn't actually solve the problem, but has some better sleeping areas. And I'm always like, the reason it works in some of these travel trailers and in some of these motorhomes is they're not trying to create a separate entire bedroom. We don't need necessarily a space for the kids to like play with toys and stuff, right?
Not in this season of our RV life. No.
What we would like is for them to each have nice sort of private-ish but large sleeping areas where they can put some of their things. They can have their laptop, their cell phone, and all that sort of stuff. They can have some of their clothes and stuffed animals and stuff like that.
An actual twin mattress space would be awesome.
Large width. So that's why my fresh tank is a new fifth wheel from Sabre. It doesn't quite work for us, but it is the 32 BHT. This is a new model they came out with that has a double bunk in the back of the fifth wheel. That's all that's back there is 2 bunks. There is a wall and a little opening and a couple stairs and some cabinets for the kids to put their stuff in. But if you've got 2 kids, this allows you to have essentially a 2-bedroom fifth wheel that is only 36 foot long.
Yeah, it's great. It's really, really well laid out. They've got such a good use of storage in it. We've been able to see it a couple of times now. I really wish I could figure out how to
3 bunks.
Make it 3 bunks so that because this is what I want. This is the size that I want.
Yeah.
This is 36 feet. It has the living space that we need, the kitchen space that we need. We don't need 2 bathrooms. We've always said, like, just cut off that second bathroom and give us that, reduce that space now.
That's part of why they end up being 46 foot long. It's like you have a bunk room. Well, now we can make the bunk room be, 3-sided, and now we can put a outdoor kitchen under one of the bunks, and now we can put a bathroom under the bunks.
Yeah.
I don't want that length.
We don't need that length. That is just our preference. And there are so many out there that meet that requirement for people who do want 2 bathrooms. And there's no shame in wanting 2 bathrooms. It would just be really nice for those of us that only want the 1 bathroom, that we could still have some of the benefits that you get with the bunkhouse 2-bath 46-foot fifth wheel. So Sabre is really attempting to answer this. I need them to answer it just one more time for me and just like literally cut out that back cargo carrying space, that pass-through space. And because there's other places in the fifth wheel that have the storage, outdoor storage, and just give me that 3rd bunk.
The other thing that they do
it. I know we can do it
in this unit is they have this thing that's been out a few years now in a lot of RVs. I think maybe I saw it for the first time 2 years ago or so. So it's really picked up speed. Is this pull-out pantry behind the entertainment center thing?
It's enormous.
So the entire entertainment center wall, you grab it and it swings open and it's all sort of pantry and storage space behind it. There's by no means, there are plenty of fifth wheels that are doing this now.
Oh, it's not new. It's just gaining speed where you're seeing it more and more. It's becoming more and more common.
It's just a great solution to the problem of having a pantry where you don't have a lot of room for a pantry.
Yeah, and it's a king-size bed up in the grown-up room, which we should have a king-size bed. That's all I want. I just want to throw my kids in 3 bunks, but I do want a king-size bed. The priorities. So this is a continuing conversation. And we talked about this at the seminar that we did in Kansas City over the weekend that RV life is always about compromises. It really, really is. Even if you are custom building something yourself, you will have compromises. You will have choices that you have to make. And this is where we're at. Is it smaller space with having to figure out how 3 kids sleep in that space, but getting us to the length that we want? Or do we have to consider being a little bit bigger in order to get the space that we want for the 3 boys? That's an ongoing conversation that we're having right now.
Yeah. All right, Abby, what is in your black tank this week?
Okay, thanks everybody for really making sure that those big giant Stanley cups become such a joke now that we can't use them anymore.
I love my Stanley Cup, and we had them before they were like wildly popular.
We have. I can't leave the house with mine now.
I guess
I especially as a white woman cannot leave the house now.
We weren't trendsetters. We did get them after they had started to popularize, but nothing like what they are now. It's become like a joke upon a joke. There was actually an SNL sketch on it.
When SNL does, so if you've seen in the past, they did something called, last year it was Big Dumb Hat. And so they did this whole skit about women my age wearing big dumb hats when we go out, you know. This year, they have taken that one step further, and they had a skit that just came out where they were all wearing their big dumb hats while carrying their big dumb cups. And they were all holding Stanleys. You know, there has been, I guess, Starbucks put one out only exclusively at Target that people went crazy for. This is such a great cup, and I can't take it out in public anymore.
So they hold the cold for so long. The lid and straw mechanism is all really well done. It's just great. But like on SNL, the big kudos to the props department on SNL for this. Yeah, the sketch wasn't actually that fantastic.
The sketch was kind of bad.
It was a little poorly acted. It wasn't as good as the Big Dumb Hat one was, but the props were like, the cups kept getting bigger and they were in things and made of things.
Cup gets put into an UGG. I mean, it's just every cliche. And again, if I want to take my Stanley out, I can take my Stanley out. You know, we all can do what we would like to do. This is no shade if you went out and bought one because you saw everyone at the soccer practice had one.
I walked around the Kansas City RV show with mine.
You for sure did. When Ethan went to rehearsal for the first week of rehearsal, and I was in there for the parent meeting, the amount of young ladies sitting there in that rehearsal space with their version of the Stanley or the Stanley was quite impressive. I mean, great. We're all staying hydrated. I'm very happy that we're all staying hydrated. Staying hydrated is very, very, very important. Yeah. It has, however, become such a joke of itself. Well, it's the thing I do. It's like when something, you know, it took me 2 years to listen to Hamilton because I was just like, no, not listening to that. Everybody's listening to it. I'm not listening to it.
And then you're like, oh.
And then I listened to it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
And so you're talking about how amazing it is after everybody's already done it.
I know, I'm like so far behind. And even though, you know, we didn't realize that these Stanleys were going to become such a big thing, and we had them, and I think we've actually fresh tanked them. Yeah. And I didn't realize we were such trendsetters. They're fantastic. But like at the same time, it's just everyone has one now, and there's a lot of fun being made of them, and I can't leave my house now with it.
One of the you know, criticisms that has really hit home with me though is like, how many water cups do you need? And we have
I don't know what you're talking about. I need the Stanley. I need my Disney Resort mug, which I loved. There was actually a meme that was like, the Disney Resort mug was my Stanley before Stanleys were cool. So
those Disney Resort mugs are terrible. They hold maybe 10 ounces. They look like they're as big as they should hold. 16 ounces, but they don't.
They're great. I love them. They're the worst. They're great. I have all kinds of emotions for those resort mugs, but I think you have cups for different situations. I mean, we've talked about this. I have particular coffee mugs or mugs that I only drink milk out of.
Well, that's true.
You know, I have an extensive coffee mug collection. This morning I woke up and I was like, what What does Jason feel like drinking out of this morning? I think Jason feels like having his coffee out of the Nebraska mug.
I couldn't even tell you that I had coffee out of the Nebraska mug this morning because I didn't pay attention.
I this morning was like, I feel like having my coffee out of my Amana, Iowa mug. That's the vibe I'm at. I'm already thinking about homecoming in October. I'm going to drink out of my homecoming mug. There's a lot of thought. And I know you're just like, oh, coffee, ooh, and you just drink it. I put a lot of thought, curated thought into our mugs. And I'm very much like, oh, we haven't drank out of this one in a while. I feel like I'm being unfair. We're favoring one mug too much. Yeah. Like we've been favoring a few specific mugs lately. So I'm trying to like spread the coffee love around.
Because maybe you only need a few specific mugs.
No. Wow. Wow. I curate every morning.
Anyway,
for you.
What's in your fresh tank this week?
So my fresh tank goes to the Kansas City RV show. I'd like to thank everyone that came out to see us while we were there over the weekend, or who joined us for the seminars. It was a lot of fun, but really, I want to fresh tank that as well, because I do hope, and it is going to continue, and the curators of it will be putting it on again next year. And I think that there's a lot of potential with this show. What I would like to see with RV shows over as they continue, and there's so many out there, I would really love to see some regional super shows, very similar to what we see in Tampa, because not everyone can make it down to Tampa. That's a big commitment to go to the Florida RV Super Show down there, or to get up to Hershey. I would like to see something like those shows on the West Coast, up in the Pacific Northwest, here in the Midwest. Areas that are a little bit easier for people to get to, so that they as well get to see a lot of what we talk about with the Super Show. They get to see more variety. And I think that Kansas City is really poised to potentially be that for the Midwest.
It's in the middle of the country.
It's the heart of the country. That's what we say in Missouri. We are the heart.
So this show used to be much bigger. Mm-hmm. So what's happened at a lot of shows around the country is that Good Sam, which is owned by Camping World, used to produce a lot of the RV shows around the country. Good Sam Media produced them. So essentially Camping World produced them. So they would be one of the dealerships at these shows, and then they invited other dealers to come in and all that sort of stuff. So this show, when we went to it a few years ago, when it was ran by Good Sam, was much bigger. But Good Sam decided to stop producing shows altogether, and now Camping World does this thing where they have like the Ultimate RV Show, which basically is just at their dealerships, and that left a lot of these things in the lurch. So then other dealers take over and try to get something back together, right? So what's been happening at the Kansas City RV Show is they're trying to get enough dealers to come to it so that they can have dealers from Kansas come in.
This is a really weird state rule. So the state of Missouri has told the Kansas City RV Show, which buy MoCan first, right? I have my entire life heard buy MoCan first, which means buy Missouri Kansas products first. This is a joint thing between MoCan. The Kansas City RV Show was told that there is a law that they have to have 10 Missouri dealers before they are allowed to invite any Kansas dealers. Yeah. So they had 8 Missouri dealers this year, and they could not bring literally 15 miles away another dealer in, because that dealer was based in Kansas. So no love for the MoCan when it comes to the RV show.
Of course, it comes down to this sort of like dealer franchise laws. And we have a lot of experience with like living on state lines. So like Abby growing up in Kansas City, it's a metropolitan area that crosses 2 states. And here in the Quad Cities area, we cross in Illinois and Iowa. And there are just weird things like this that happen. in some of these areas, but it was still a great show.
It was a great show.
There were like 200 rigs there, and I think the turnout was good, and we saw a lot of stuff that really interested us. There was a good variety in trailers. Not a lot of motorhomes there, especially not a lot of like Class A motorhomes. There usually isn't at some of these regional shows.
Plenty of Class C's, but I think even considering that the Sunday of the show was the AFC championship game at 2:00, and Kansas City was in it, so that really cut attendance. But they had 13,000 people.
Yeah,
and I don't think that is anything to bat an eye at. Like, I think that was really a strong turnout for something that. And I really feel it's important to say that, bigger, as you mentioned, this used to be bigger. Bigger is not always better.
Well, and
I don't know that Camping World and Good Sam being in charge of these bigger shows actually meant these shows were better. No, I don't think they were.
What needs to happen is all of the dealers in the area that want to come to the show should be able to come to the show.
100%.
Otherwise, they feel like left out, and they feel like it's us versus them now, and it's that kind of thing.
Yeah, they had 3 Kansas dealers that really wanted to go. And they couldn't get in there, and they have a whole. So where this happens is it's called Bartle Hall. It's enormous. There is a whole other section of this hall that they had closed off because they didn't need the space. But their ability to expand is, I believe, almost double what they had at this show.
And I do appreciate though, like the amount of it's sort of like trying to defend something. I'm not. But. There's some things about RV shows that I didn't quite understand that I'm getting a little bit more now. And one of the dealers I overheard talking about how they used to bring a lot more rigs to this show, and they brought fewer this time because they wanted to spread them out a little bit. It was just too overwhelming. Everything was compact too much. Everything was so this particular dealer themselves could have brought more, but they were like, well, let's just focus on some specific models, because a lot of these shows are about just getting stuff off their lot too sometimes. But this was not the case. And I think there's also this thing, like I've talked on the show in the past here about how it's kind of weird that RV shows charge, and how I went to the big, they go to the big Elkhart open house where they wine and dine all the dealers every year. And I'm kind of like, well, why don't they do that to the customers? But I kind of understand now. And I was reading an article in RV Business today about this, about, I think, the New England RV show. I don't know what the actual show name was. I can't remember off the top of my head, but the article was an interview with Bob Zagami, who's the president of the New England RV Dealers Association or something. He's a great guy, but he's talking about how the attendance was a little down this year, but he has no shame in saying, like, we are the most expensive RV show in the country to go to. It's $17 admission, and it is very expensive to eat and stuff around this place. So it can be expensive to go to. What that does is makes them not focus on attendance. What they're trying to have is buyers there that are serious buyers. And when it's free, obviously, then the serious buyers are crowded out by all the people in these rigs. When you charge an admission fee, the folks that are coming, they have more interest, they have more skin in the game. It's always unfortunate when crowd control is done with money, and I hate that. And I wish there was a better solution. But I think there is some truth to that where, especially when we were even here in Kansas City at the show, but especially when we were in Tampa, I mean, they charge, of course, to get in, but it is more of an event there where a lot of the people there aren't there to buy. They're just there. They might never RV. They just think it's cool to go walk through some of these rigs. It is so hard if you are an actual buyer to spend some time in figuring all that out, unless you take a day off work and come on Thursday morning, which is, by the way, the best advice we have for you if this is something that you are actually considering.
Yeah. Go on a Thursday or Friday, or go on, if it's Chiefs playoff day, go on that day to the RV show in Kansas City. I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think that also there is a balance by doing that. The kids are admitted for free. You know, here in Kansas City, it was $12, but kids 12 and under were free to get in. So mom and dad can still go and bring the kids with them, and it's not overly expensive. The food was very expensive.
The chicken strips are $10.
Wow. The food was very expensive. And I don't know how much an RV show has control over that, to be honest.
That's always the convention center.
Yeah.
And that's always a pain in the butt. Always plan on having, we went to a food truck.
Snacks.
She made the kids carry them in their backpack, though. A lot of weight in those backpacks.
She brought snacks.
We went to a food truck at the Tampa RV show. And they didn't have prices on their menu, and we knew we weren't going anywhere else like this. There was no line here. We knew we weren't leaving the show. That would have been impossible. We had a little bit of time before we needed to be somewhere, and it looked good. They had these wraps. They were like kind of like Italian wraps.
It was a sourdough wrap, and you could get different like fillings in it.
And it was very good. I really enjoyed what I ate, but we got 2 wraps.
And 2
there's
sodas.
There's no sides or anything. 2 wraps, 2 sodas, and it was $50.
I almost was like, take this back. I don't want this.
Which was weird because like right next to it they had like the bar, and the bar was like wine for $10, which was what you would expect, and wasn't like.
Yeah, and it was a good pour. They were very generous over there, but $50 for us to have lunch. I was floored. Yeah. It was wild. So we are way off track here on this. We've been talking about this for a very long time. But RV shows are fun.
And I hope you go to the Kansas City RV show next year, because we will be back at the Kansas City RV show next year. We will also be at the Seattle RV show
this year
very soon in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that actually starts up on February 15th. Yes, we fly out on the 14th. So it starts up on February 15th and runs through the weekend. So that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We are speaking every single day. The schedule just dropped in my inbox yesterday, so that will get shared. Join the mailing list for RV Miles. That'll be the best way to keep up on information like this. Just go to rvmiles.com/mailing list. You're going to get our weekly road signs newsletter, and then occasionally you'll get an email. We try very, very hard not to send a ton of emails to you, just the stuff that we absolutely want you to know about, like we're speaking here. We have monthly Nite Live coming up. If you want to become a Mile Marker member to join that, that's happening on the first Monday of the month. The good news
for you is that we forget to send emails all the time.
We also are notorious for forgetting to send out an email. And then we're like, well, it's too late now. I can't send it. Anyway, rvmiles.com/mailing list to find out more about what our schedule in Seattle is going to be. If you're going to be in that area in the middle of February, we would absolutely love to see you. So please come on down to the show.
All right, that's it for this week's episode of the RV Miles podcast.
Yes, it is. And if you have any questions for Jason and I, or any thoughts on today's episode, if you're watching this on YouTube, just go ahead and leave them down there in the comments and we will for sure answer them. But if you are listening to this and you want to join the conversation, just head over to the RV Miles Facebook group. Look for the pinned post that is this episode. You can find that right at the top of the group. You can get into that post and you can drop your comment right down in there. And Jason and I will for sure see it, and we will do our best to answer your questions or just engage others in the community to talk with you about this episode.
Sorry, I muted myself. They're better at answering questions than us anyway.
Yeah, for sure. But until next week, thank you so much for joining us. Please continue to stay safe, stay healthy, and keep logging those RV miles.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.